The crystalline ship materialized above Earth's atmosphere, its surface reflecting starlight like countless diamonds. Inside, Commander Vextera stood before her elite unit, the Zenith Force, her iridescent scales shifting colors with each movement. Her 4 eyes, each capable of seeing different spectrum of light, surveyed the assembled warriors, the finest the collective had ever produced. Earth, she announced, her voice resonating through the neural network that connected all members of the Zenith Force. A Level 3 civilization on the brink of interstellar capability. Our mission is simple: assess, infiltrate, and if necessary, neutralize any threat they pose to galactic order. Behind her, a holographic projection of Earth rotated slowly, its blue-white surface marked with the golden dots of major population centers. Lieutenant Kyrx, her second in command, stepped forward. His crystalline exoskeleton clinked softly as he moved, a sound that had terrified countless species across the galaxy. "Commander, preliminary scans show significant technological advancement in the past century," he reported, his thoughts flowing directly into the shared consciousness of the unit. However, their development pattern is irregular. They appear to prioritize entertainment and comfort over military might. Vextera's upper eyes narrowed while her lower ones continued monitoring the tactical display. "Explain." "They have the capability to split atoms, yet they use this power primarily for civilian energy. They have achieved spaceflight, but their orbital stations are dedicated to scientific research rather than weapons platforms. It's inefficient." The word inefficient rippled through the neural network, causing discomfort among the assembled warriors. In the collective, inefficiency was considered the highest form of disorder, a cancer that needed to be excised for the greater good of the galaxy. "Perhaps that's why we're here," Vextera mused. "The collective cannot allow such chaos to spread." She turned to her specialized units. "Raznil, your infiltration team will deploy first. Standard protocol: observe and analyze. No engagement without direct authorization." Raznil, whose chameleonic skin could mimic any surface, bowed slightly. His team of 6 had never failed a mission in 300 years of service. "As you command." The descent to Earth began with precision that would have impressed even the most demanding of the collective's leaders. Cloaking fields engaged, the infiltration pods launched silently, their trajectory calculated to land in various strategic locations across the planet. Raznil's pod touched down in what humans called New York City, its presence masked by advanced technology that bent light and sound around it. As he emerged, his skin automatically adjusted to match the urban environment. His first thought, broadcast back to the ship, was one of confusion. The city was a cacophony of chaos. Vehicles moved in seemingly random patterns, humans walked while staring at small devices in their hands, and the air was filled with 1,000 different sounds and smells. Nothing followed the orderly patterns that the collective deemed essential for civilization. "Commander," he transmitted, "I'm detecting no unified consciousness, no central control network. Each human appears to be operating independently." On the ship, Vextera received this information with growing concern. "Impossible. No species can achieve this level of technological advancement without unified purpose." But as more reports flooded in from other infiltration teams, a disturbing picture emerged. In Beijing, humans crowded into underground trains, yet somehow maintained complex social structures without neural links. In London, they gathered in parks, engaging in activities that served no apparent evolutionary purpose. In Sao Paulo, they danced in the streets to rhythms that followed no mathematical formula the collective could recognize. "This defies all known sociological models," Kyrx stated, his crystalline form vibrating with distress. "They should have destroyed themselves centuries ago. Their lack of order, their individual autonomy, it violates every principle of stable civilization." Vextera watched the streams of data flowing in from her teams, her scales shifting to a deep purple of contemplation. "Perhaps," she said slowly, "that's what makes them dangerous. They've achieved what our models say is impossible. The next phase of their mission was meant to be simple, a show of force to demonstrate the futility of resistance. Vexterra dispatched her combat specialists to a small town in the American Midwest, choosing it as a test site for their first direct contact. What happened next would change everything. The combat team, led by the veteran warrior Zexpor, materialized in the town square at midnight. Their armor, capable of withstanding plasma weapons, gleamed under the street lights. They expected panic, terror, perhaps some token resistance from local authorities. Instead, a group of teenagers playing something called Pokémon Go simply asked if they were part of a special event. One of them even tried to catch Zexpor with their phone, exclaiming excitedly about legendary raid bosses. "Commander," Zexpor transmitted, his confusion bleeding through the neural network, "they appear to be enjoying our presence." Vexterra's scales shifted to the red of alarm. In all her centuries of service, she had never encountered a species that didn't respond to the zenith force with appropriate fear. This was more than just chaos, it was a fundamental challenge to everything the collective believed about the nature of civilization. As the first day of their mission drew to a close, Vexterra stood in her command chamber, watching the sun set over Earth's horizon. Her mission parameters were clear: assess the threat and respond accordingly. But for the first time in her long career, she faced a question she couldn't answer. Dawn broke over the crystalline ship as Commander Vexterra reviewed the first wave of intelligence reports. Her scales rippled with shades of deep blue, the color of strategic contemplation in her species. The data streams flowing through the neural network painted a picture that defied every tactical doctrine in the collective's vast archives. "Impossible," Lieutenant Kyrx muttered, his crystalline form refracting the morning light into rainbow patterns across the command center. "They've repurposed our infiltration signatures into something called the viral marketing campaign." The holographic displays showed thousands of social media posts about mysterious lights and strange figures, but instead of panic, humans were organizing alien spotting parties and creating merchandise. Someone had already designed t-shirts featuring a surprisingly accurate depiction of Zexpor with the caption, "I tried to catch this raid boss." "Their adaptability is concerning," Vexterra acknowledged, her lower eyes scanning threat assessments while her upper pair studied human behavioral patterns. "We need to escalate. Initiate protocol dominance." Protocol dominance was the Zenith Force's preferred method of establishing control over a planet. It had worked flawlessly on 17 different worlds. The strategy was elegant in its simplicity: demonstrate overwhelming technological superiority, disrupt key infrastructure, and watch as the target civilization descended into chaos before offering salvation through submission. The first phase began at precisely 0800 hours local time in New York City. Raznil's infiltration team activated their power dampening fields, designed to create a cascading failure in electrical systems. In theory, the sudden loss of power would trigger panic and social breakdown. Instead, New Yorkers treated it like a holiday. "Commander," Raznil's confused thoughts echoed through the neural network, "they're having parties on their rooftops. Something they call a blackout barbecue. They're sharing food and playing acoustic instruments." Vexterra's scales shifted to the modeled pattern of tactical uncertainty. "Expand the effect. Disable their communication networks." But even as cellular networks went down, humans adapted with startling speed. They turned to older technologies, radios, landlines, and in some cases, actual face-to-face conversations. Street musicians played louder, food cart vendors gave out free ice cream before it could melt, and children played games that required no electricity at all. "Their social cohesion isn't dependent on technology," Kyrx observed, his crystalline form vibrating with unease. "They're actually forming stronger bonds without it." The second phase of protocol dominance targeted transportation systems. The Zenith Force deployed microsingularity generators to create localized gravitational anomalies, making vehicle operation impossible in major cities. The humans responded by declaring an impromptu, car-free day, and turning highways into temporary pedestrian zones. In Seattle, someone organized a spontaneous roller skating party. In London, pub owners set up tables in the streets, creating an instant festival atmosphere. This defies all historical precedent, Vexterra broadcasted to her command staff. Their chaos should be their weakness. Instead, it appears to be a source of strength. The final phase was meant to be decisive. The Zenith Force revealed itself openly, positioning their crystalline ships above major cities in a display of overwhelming force. Zexpor's combat team materialized in Times Square, their advanced armor and weapons gleaming in the midday sun. What happened next would be debated in collective strategic sessions for centuries to come. A street performer dressed as a silver-painted robot immediately incorporated Zexpor's team into his act. Tourists began taking selfies with the amazingly realistic aliens. Someone started a TikTok dance challenge featuring the Zenith Force's intimidating combat stance. Commander, Zexpor transmitted, his thoughts tinged with something dangerously close to embarrassment. They're making us into entertainment. My threat display was just turned into a dance move that's trending globally. In London, a local pub renamed itself the Alien Arms and offered a discount to anyone in cosmic cosplay. In Tokyo, street fashion designers were already incorporating elements of Zenith Force armor into their latest collections. In Rio de Janeiro, plans were underway to feature the alien invasion theme in the next carnival. Vexterra stood in her command chamber, her scales cycling through colors so rapidly that Kyrx had to adjust his visual processors. The neural network hummed with confusion and, more worryingly, fascination. Several younger warriors had begun studying human social media, their thoughts showing dangerous levels of interest in Earth culture. This mission is compromised, she finally announced, her tone carrying the weight of centuries of experience. Humans don't just adapt to chaos, they thrive on it. They turn disruption into celebration, fear into entertainment, and threats into opportunities for connection. Should we proceed with full military engagement? Kyrx asked, though his crystalline form betrayed his uncertainty. Vexterra's scales settled into a deep violet, the color of profound realization. No. We face something far more dangerous than military resistance. Every attempt to destabilize their society only makes them stronger. They're not just resisting us, they're absorbing us into their chaos. As if to prove her point, the neural network suddenly filled with unauthorized data streams, human music, social media feeds, and something called memes. Several younger warriors were caught attempting to create their own TikTok accounts. Commander, a junior analyst transmitted urgently, we're detecting a new phenomenon. Humans are organizing something called a First Contact Festival. They're selling tickets. We're the headline attraction. Vexterra stared at the holographic display showing Earth's teeming cities, each one pulsing with unpredictable life and creativity. For the first time in her centuries-long career, she faced an enemy that couldn't be defeated because it refused to acknowledge defeat as a possibility. The Zenith Force, pride of the collective, was being welcomed, celebrated, and merchandised. And somehow, that was more devastating than any resistance they had prepared for. Send word to the collective, she commanded, her scales settling into the gray of formal reporting. Earth represents a unique threat, a civilization that weapons joy itself. As she watched her warriors struggle to maintain their intimidating presence while being invited to participate in something called a flash mob, Vexterra realized that the real invasion might not be going in the direction anyone had expected. The collective's high command responded to Commander Vexterra's report with predictable alarm. Their transmission arrived encoded in quantum frequencies that even humans' most advanced instruments couldn't detect. Your mission parameters remain unchanged, the message stated. Earth's resistance through assimilation poses an even greater threat than anticipated. Their ability to transform military confrontation into cultural exchange must be contained. Vexterra's scales shifted to deep crimson as she shared the orders through the neural network. But something had changed in the usually pristine data stream. Fragments of human culture had begun infiltrating their secure communications, snippets of music, flashes of art, traces of what humans called memes. "We're being contaminated," Lieutenant Kyrx observed, his crystalline form vibrating with frequencies that suggested deep disturbance. "The humans' chaos, it's infectious." The evidence was becoming impossible to ignore. Several members of Raznil's infiltration team had started using human gestures unconsciously. 2 warriors had been caught attempting to recreate something called pizza in the ship's molecular synthesizers. Even more alarming, some had begun expressing individual preferences, a concept strictly forbidden in collective society. "Perhaps," Vextera suggested, her scales showing patterns never before seen in her species, "we should study this infection. Understand it before we attempt to eliminate it." She dispatched specialized observation teams to various human institutions, not to infiltrate, but to understand. What they discovered shook the foundations of everything the collective believed about civilization. In a kindergarten classroom in Seoul, warrior observer Texlon watched in amazement as small humans learned through play. "Commander," she transmitted, "they intentionally introduce chaos into their education system. They call it creativity and actively encourage it." From a street market in Marrakesh, another observer reported on the seemingly random interactions between buyers and sellers that somehow resulted in a functional economy. The absence of central planning was shocking, yet the market thrived. But it was Zexpor's discovery in a small music venue in Nashville that truly demonstrated the human's hidden strength. The veteran warrior had been studying human acoustic weapons, which they called musical instruments, when he experienced something unprecedented. "Commander, his transmission came through filled with unfamiliar emotional harmonics. They have developed a technology that transmits emotions directly, without neural interfaces. They call it live music. I felt something. Something not in the collective's emotional spectrum." Vextera herself had begun experiencing troubling symptoms. She found herself pausing to watch Earth sunsets, appreciating them not for their tactical significance but for their beauty, a concept that had never before entered her consciousness. The crisis point came during what was supposed to be a routine surveillance operation. A team of warriors was observing a human sporting event, a chaotic display of competition that the collective would never have permitted. The humans called it street basketball. The warriors watched as players moved in seemingly random patterns, adapting instantly to changing situations, celebrating both victory and defeat with equal enthusiasm. Then something unprecedented happened, they were invited to play. "Commander," came the panic transmission, "we can't predict their movements. Their actions follow no strategic protocol. They're having fun." The word "fun" rippled through the neural network like a virus, causing widespread disruption. Several warriors began exhibiting unauthorized neural patterns. Some even requested permission to participate in human recreational activities. In her command chamber, Vextera faced a decision that would alter the course of both civilizations. The collective's directive was clear: contain and eliminate the threat. But she was beginning to understand that the real threat wasn't to their military superiority, it was to their entire way of life. "Kyrx," she addressed her second-in-command, "what if our understanding of strength has been flawed? The collective achieves perfection through unity and order. Humans achieve it through diversity and chaos." Her words were dangerously close to heresy, but Kyrx's crystalline form resonated with something like agreement. Around them, the ship's systems had begun showing signs of transformation. The usually sterile corridors now contained unauthorized decorative elements. Warriors had started customizing their quarters, expressing individual preferences in direct violation of collective protocols. "The humans aren't just resisting us," Vextera continued, her scales displaying entirely new patterns that somehow expressed both concern and fascination. "They're showing us a different kind of strength, one we never knew existed." Through the neural network, she could feel her warriors changing. Their thoughts were becoming less uniform, more diverse. Some had started developing unique identities, a concept so foreign to their species that they had no word for it. The ship's quantum sensors detected a new phenomenon, spontaneous neural pattern generation. Warriors were beginning to create their own thoughts rather than receiving them from the collective. They were, in human terms, becoming individuals. "Commander," a junior warrior transmitted, breaking all protocols by initiating unauthorized communication, "I have experienced something the humans call imagination. I had thoughts that were entirely my own." The admission should have triggered immediate containment protocols. Instead, Vextera found herself experiencing an unauthorized emotional response, curiosity. As Earth rotated below them, its chaos and creativity reaching up through space to infect their ordered world, Vextera realized they faced a choice. The collective had sent them to neutralize a threat, but perhaps the real threat wasn't Earth's potential for destruction, but its potential for transformation. "Send word to all units," she commanded, her scales settling into a completely new pattern that somehow expressed both determination and wonder. "We are initiating protocol metamorphosis." "Commander," KYRX's crystalline form pulsed with alarm, "there is no protocol metamorphosis in our tactical database." "Exactly," Vextera replied, and for the first time in her centuries of existence, she smiled, a gesture she had learned from the humans. "We're going to have to improvise." The word improvise had never before been part of the collective's vocabulary. Now it spread through the neural network like a revelation, changing everything it touched. The invasion of Earth was about to take a turn that no one, human or alien, could have predicted. The collective's response to protocol metamorphosis was swift and severe. 3 massive warships materialized in Earth's orbit, their crystalline surfaces darker and more angular than Vextera's vessel. They carried the Purifier Core, specialists in eliminating contaminated units and correcting deviant behavior. High Purifier Zalthax's transmission cut through all neural frequencies. "Commander Vextera, your unit has been compromised. The infection of individualism must be contained. Prepare for immediate extraction and purification." In her command chamber, Vextera's scales rippled with colors that had never before existed in their species' emotional spectrum. Around her, the neural network hummed with something new, fear, not of failure or punishment, but of losing what they had discovered on Earth. "Lieutenant KYRX," she broadcast, her thoughts carrying an unfamiliar warmth, "what is your analysis of our situation?" Her second-in-command's crystalline form shimmered with unauthorized patterns. "By collective standards, we are lost. We have been changed." He paused, then added something that would have been unthinkable weeks ago, "I believe this change is good." Through their neural link, Vextera sensed similar thoughts echoing among her warriors. Raznil's infiltration team had developed distinct personalities. Zexpor's combat units had started creating art. Even the ship itself had begun evolving, its crystalline corridors now flowing with organic patterns inspired by Earth's architecture. The Purifier ships loomed above, their weapons powered and ready. But something unprecedented was happening on Earth below. Humans, having noticed the new arrival, had begun broadcasting messages, not of fear or defiance, but of welcome. "Check the transmissions," Vextera commanded. The data flooded their neural network, social media posts, radio signals, television broadcasts. Humans were organizing gatherings in open spaces, creating massive light displays visible from orbit, sharing messages of peace in every language. "They don't know we're at war with ourselves," KYRX observed, "yet they're offering exactly what we need, acceptance of diversity." A direct neural probe from High Purifier Zalthax pierced their communications. "Your units show dangerous levels of contamination. Individual thought patterns detected. Emotional aberrations observed. Prepare for purification." But as the Purifier Core prepared to cleanse the infected warriors, something remarkable occurred. The humans' constant broadcasts, their music, their art, their endless creative energy, began affecting the Purifier ships. Their rigid crystalline structures started resonating with Earth's chaotic frequencies. "Commander," a junior warrior transmitted excitedly, breaking all protocols of hierarchy, the human communications, they're not just signals. They're carrying their way of thinking, their freedom. Vexterra watched as the first cracks appeared in the purifier's perfect order. Their neural networks, designed to enforce conformity, were being overwhelmed by the sheer variety and vitality of human expression. Earth's chaos was proving more contagious than anyone had imagined. In a small park in Tokyo, a group of children had set up a makeshift concert for the space visitors, their songs carrying messages of friendship. In Rio de Janeiro, thousands gathered to dance, their rhythms sending vibrations through the very crystalline structures of the alien ships. In Cairo, artists projected massive light installations onto the pyramids, creating displays of geometric complexity that rivaled collective architecture. The humans, Kyrax realized, his crystalline form resonating with newfound understanding, they're not trying to fight. They're trying to connect. The purifier ship's perfect formations began to waver. Individual warriors within their ranks started showing signs of unauthorized neural activity. The rigid patterns of their thought networks began dissolving into something more organic, more alive. High Purifier Zalthax's next transmission carried an edge of desperation. This contamination is worse than anticipated. Initiating final purification protocols. But as the purifier ships charged their main weapons, their crews experienced something they were never prepared for: choice. The neural networks that had bound them to absolute obedience began fragmenting, replaced by individual thoughts, desires, and most dangerously, questions. Vexterra seized the moment. To all warriors of the collective, she broadcast on all frequencies, we offer you not contamination, but liberation. The humans have shown us that strength comes not from perfect order, but from endless variety. Not from rigid control, but from free expression. Her words, carried on waves of human music and art that now permeated their neural networks, reached into the heart of the purifier ships. Warriors who had never known anything but absolute conformity began experiencing the first stirrings of individual thought. The response came not as a unified transmission, but as a cascade of individual voices, some confused, some frightened, some exhilarated. The purifier ship's perfect crystalline structures began shifting, their surfaces flowing into organic patterns that reflected their crew's awakening consciousness. High Purifier Zalthax's final transmission carried something never before heard in a collective communication: uncertainty. What is happening to us? We're evolving, Vexterra replied, her scales now displaying patterns of such complexity that they seemed to tell entire stories. The humans aren't defeating us. They're teaching us how to be truly alive. As Earth's sun set over the Pacific, casting golden light across the crystalline ships, the greatest invasion in human history transformed into something else entirely. The purifier core, sent to eliminate the infection of individuality, instead became its newest carriers. The turning point had arrived, but not as anyone had expected. The question was no longer whether Earth would fall to the collective, but whether the collective itself was ready for what Earth had awakened in its perfect, ordered ranks. And somewhere in a small café in Paris, a young warrior who had once been part of the most elite fighting force in the galaxy sat down to write poetry for the first time in their existence. The collective Supreme Council gathered in their crystalline citadel, billions of light-years from Earth. The emergency session was unprecedented, not just for its urgency, but for the chaos that had infiltrated even this sanctum of perfect order. The quantum transmissions from Earth had changed everything. The council chambers, once a model of geometric perfection, now displayed unauthorized organic patterns. Council members, who had maintained unchanged thought patterns for millennia, were exhibiting dangerous signs of individuality. The contamination spreads, First Speaker Malthex announced, their crystalline form flickering with unfamiliar emotions. Commander Vexterra's reports are causing widespread neural disruption. Even the purifier core has been transformed. The holographic displays showed the scene at Earth. The once rigid military formation of ships now flowed in artistic patterns through space. Warriors who had been bred for combat were engaging in cultural exchange with humans. The neural networks that had enforced uniformity for countless generations were evolving into something new, networks of shared creativity rather than controlled conformity. Back on Earth, Vexterra stood in a bustling town square, her scales shifting through colors that told stories of transformation. Beside her, Lieutenant Kyrax's crystalline form had developed intricate patterns that reflected both his military precision and his newfound appreciation for jazz. The humans have organized something called a cultural integration festival, he reported, his thoughts carrying traces of amusement, an emotion that would have been punishable by death in the old collective. They've invited our warriors to share our art forms with theirs. The scene around them was beyond anything the collective could have imagined. Warriors who had once moved in perfect unison were learning human dances. Infiltration specialists were teaching humans about quantum mathematics while learning about poetry. Combat units were participating in something called an open mic night. But the most profound changes were happening in the neural networks themselves. The rigid pathways of collective thought were being transformed by exposure to human creativity. Warriors were developing not just individual thoughts, but individual dreams. "Commander," a young warrior transmitted, breaking protocol with casual ease, "I wish to understand something the humans call jazz improvisation. It appears to be a form of tactical chaos, but it creates harmony." Before Vexterra could respond, a priority transmission cut through all frequencies. The collective Supreme Council had reached a decision. The holographic image of first speaker Malthex materialized before them, their form barely maintaining its traditional symmetry. "Commander Vexterra," the first speaker began, then hesitated, another unprecedented occurrence. "We have analyzed the situation. The human contamination cannot be contained. It has already reached the core worlds of the collective. We are changing." The transmission carried something never before seen in collective communication: uncertainty, wonder, and possibility. The rigid hierarchy that had governed their civilization for millions of years was dissolving, replaced by something more organic, more alive. Therefore, Malthex continued, their forms shifting into patterns that would have been considered heretical hours ago. "We have made our final decision. The collective as we knew it, must end." The announcement rippled through the neural networks, reaching every warrior, every ship, every crystalline structure of their civilization. But instead of the expected resistance, it was met with a new emotion: hope. Vexterra's scales displayed patterns of such complexity that they seemed to capture the entire journey from order to chaos, from conformity to creativity. "What are your orders, first speaker?" "Orders." Malthex's form shimmed with what might have been laughter, another human contamination. "We no longer give orders, Commander. We suggest. We propose. We invite. The humans have shown us a different way of existence. Not perfect order, but perfect freedom to be imperfect." The transformation was complete. The invasion force that had come to impose order on Earth had instead been transformed by its chaos. The elite warriors of the collective, bred for conformity and control, had discovered something far more powerful than military might: the ability to change, to create, to become individuals while remaining connected. And so, Malthex announced, their form now flowing with patterns that told stories of revolution and rebirth, "We dissolve the collective. In its place, we establish the Federation of Free Worlds, with Earth as our teacher rather than our subject." The response from Earth was immediate and characteristically human. Celebrations erupted across the globe. Social media exploded with welcome messages. Someone already had T-shirts printed with "Class of 2025, First Intergalactic Cultural Exchange Program." In her command chamber, now decorated with both quantum art and human posters, Vexterra received one final transmission from the former first speaker: "The elite forces we sent to conquer Earth have indeed vanished. In their place, something far more remarkable has emerged: individuals capable of both order and chaos, both unity and diversity." As Earth's sun rose on a new era of human-alien cooperation, Vexterra realized that the mission had been successful, just not in any way the original collective could have imagined. They had come to impose their perfect order on Earth's chaos. Instead, Earth's chaos had perfected them. The elite alien forces had vanished, not through defeat or destruction, but through transformation. They had discovered that the greatest strength lies not in unwavering order, but in the courage to embrace change, to celebrate difference, and to find harmony in the beautiful chaos of free will. And somewhere in what used to be the collective's territory, a young warrior was explaining to their former combat unit why human cat videos were the highest form of art in the known universe.